Hey, Dylan.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah, so the Seinfeld finale is, I think it's hit its 25-year anniversary. It might be its 20-year anniversary. I can't remember. Dates are difficult. But I was like, maybe we'll do something for Seinfeld. But, like, I didn't really want to do a Festivus episode. Like, I feel like that's been done to death. And the origins of this whole thing, Dylan, are that I go to bed listening to commentary tracks, DVD commentary tracks.
Okay.
And as I was like going through my DVD collection and finding commentary tracks, I'm currently on the Seinfeld DVDs.
Yeah.
And this episode has a commentary track, and that's when I remembered, oh shit, there is a second kind of Christmas barely talked about Seinfeld episode in comparison to Festivus, which is The Race. And I think the reason why it's barely talked about as a Christmas episode is that the Christmassy stuff feels really tacked on to the rest of the plot.
It's just like Kramer playing Santa, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But I do think that this is I think that Festivus is an episode that a lot of people show folks when they're like, you don't like Seinfeld, but you have to watch Festivus and the Soup Nazi and like the contest. Like, it's like kind of the same like 4 or 5 episodes everyone recommends. But I actually think the Race does a good job of you're seeing like all of the worst of all of these characters in a single episode, because this is like the precursor to something like Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where it's like you're not supposed to actually like any of the 4 main characters, but like you're in it. I mean, it's what Larry David perfected when he did Curb Your Enthusiasm, right? Like, just like, you know it's going to go poorly. This actually has a weird victory for once.
Yeah.
Which
it ends on a high note. Like Jerry kind of gets away with it all at the end. I'm going to be honest, man.
You're not a Seinfeld guy. Yeah.
I'm not a Seinfeld guy. I've never been a Seinfeld guy. Seinfeld, to me, remember, listeners, I am a bit younger. So I was not prime Seinfeld age. I was like, what? When did the show end?
I want to say it was 98.
98? Okay, so I was 6 years old when the show ended. Like, not when the show started, but when it ended. So Seinfeld, to me, especially when it hit syndication, it usually came on at 6 p.m., and to me, it just signified that, hey, it's getting later. You're going to have to go to bed and wake up for school tomorrow.
Yeah, that baseline sent fear down through your spine.
Exactly. Yeah. I hated it. It gave me so much fucking anxiety. So, like, me relating to Seinfeld is literally just what has existed in the pop culture zeitgeist of, I know the basics of Seinfeld because of how popular it was.
Yeah.
Seinfeld, to me, in general, I've seen a couple episodes, I've seen the Festivus episodes, but it's never been like, oh my God, I love this show. And it's been a few years since I've sat down and watched any Seinfeld, and watched it last night. And I'm going to be honest, man, I don't know if it's part of the bit or what, but is Jerry's stand-up supposed to be bad?
So I learned about this through the DVD commentary track. I'm not going to say that it's supposed to be bad, but basically they would write all of the episodes, they would film all of the episodes, and then Jerry would do a weekend show for just like friends, family, and cast and crew, where he would just do one-time only jokes that tied to the theming of every single episode. Yeah. So I wouldn't say that it's intentionally bad, but it is definitely intentionally thrown together as quickly as possible to make ends meet.
All right. And I'm sure some are better than others. I'm sure there's like some...
I didn't hate this one.
If you go to YouTube and you type in like top 10 Seinfeld stand-up cold opens, like,
there'll be some
sure it's on there.
But I never quote any of Jerry's stand-up routines. I didn't hate this one. I like the idea of like driving around and all the trees are laying in the grass like a mob hit, and you know he's like, somehow we just forget that we put it in there. Like, we just show up and we're like, oh my God, there's a tree in our house. throw it away.
I was sitting there and I'm like, this is Matt Kelly humor. Like, this
Yeah.
is
Oh, yeah.
fucking, I was like, and that's going to be like when we talk about another thing that we watched recently. I was also like, this is Matt Kelly for sure.
So let's, first of all, do you know about Jerry Seinfeld's real life obsession with Superman?
No.
So in every single Seinfeld episode, we're talking like 200 episodes, they found a way to make a Superman reference in every episode, or like hide a Superman somewhere in the background, because like Jerry Seinfeld loves Superman.
Damn. And that was the whole fucking episode.
That's what I was going to say. So this episode's almost like all of that obsession like accumulates into this scenario where Jerry is now dating a girl named Lois, and it's causing him
how hype he is about dating a girl named Lois, because it's you and I. You're like, oh my god, that's the same name as this fucking thing that I'm really into.
Dude, and just him finding a way to quote like old Superman comics and serials and stuff, just in the like, don't worry, Lois, I'll think of something. Like,
and nothing. That theme is so good. That Superman theme is so
and it
good.
Builds to, we were talking about the feel good crescendo, but like him running the race to the Superman
after cheating again.
Technically he didn't cheat. He just,
I know.
I like that his thing is that he just gets so amped up with excitement, like that he just he can't control himself. I'll talk about this thing. There's one thing in this episode that doesn't sit well with me, and we're about to get there.
Is it the commie stuff?
No, the commie stuff doesn't bother me as much as the Chinese food delivery guy.
Whoa, yeah. I think I blocked that out of my mind.
Well, my favorite thing is, again, I listened to the DVD commentary for this, and I want to say that this one is Elaine. It's Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Jason Alexander doing the DVD commentary.
Okay.
And when that guy shows up, I think Jason Alexander goes, well, this guy's making a choice. But I think they said, like, this is them claiming, could be totally revisionist, where they're like, this was not written like this in the script. This actor showed up and just like started swinging to the cheap seats with his performance. And they're like, but we thought it was funny, so we went with it. But like, it is uncomfortable whenever he delivers any line. Like,
oh my god, dude, it is very awkward to watch. And the worst part about it is the joke isn't the stereotype. Like, the joke is that she has been banned from this restaurant because of the way she acted. Like, that's the joke, and him showing up. You could have made this a hoagie shop, like or like anything. If they're in a hoagie for you guys, it's a sub shop. But
but also, I don't think Elaine's in the wrong. If they brought the entirely wrong food, I'd be like, I'm not paying for this.
Yeah, you could honestly remove that entire plot out of this episode, and
it really brings nothing to the table. Yeah, it doesn't tie back to anything. I assume it's just used as a way to write out Elaine's new boyfriend in time for the next episode. Like, that's really all it holds. But yes, I love that George discovers that her boyfriend is possibly a communist because he reads the Daily Worker. Yeah. And that's when he looks in the classified ads and he goes, appearance not important. Now that's an ideology I can get behind.
So what is George's job? Like, what does George do?
So the season prior,
okay,
George was homeless, not homeless. George was jobless.
Okay,
and he made a decision that anytime that he follows his gut instinct, it's wrong. So he's just going to go with the opposite choice that he would normally make at all times.
Okay.
So he's like that. It's the final episode of the previous season. So he's like, sits down. He's like, you know what? I get the same sandwich every day. I'm going to do the total opposite of this sandwich. And he orders something crazy. And then this like beautiful woman's just like, hi, I know this is weird, but you just ordered the exact same sandwich as me. Would you like to go on a date? So they go on a date, and he's like, I'm not even going to act like she's attractive. I'm just going to treat her like garbage because that's the opposite of what I would do. And she's like, you are unlike anyone I've ever met. She's like, I should get you a job with my dad. He works at the Yankees Stadium, and he gets a job
Oh
like
my
working
God.
and it's just like constant escalation. And then he meets like who is the head of the Yankees at that time, George Steinbrenner, who's voiced by Larry David, and they play this character totally outrageous. But like he's doing the job interview, and the guy's like, "Oh, George, this is Mr. Steinbrenner," and he's just like, "You should be ashamed about what you've done to this beautiful organization. You've like," he just like yells at him for ruining the Yankees, and all of a sudden he just goes, "Hire this man." He like walks away. So that's basically like George's job is very up in the air. Like you don't know what he does. He just has a job working for the Yankees, and George Stein, like they stretched out. Usually they would try to give the characters a different job every season or every other season. Yeah. I think they keep George at the Yankees for like 3 years because they just have so much fun with Larry David's voiceover work as his very eccentric, strange boss. Yeah. Which we get a hint of that.
Yes, we do get a little bit of a hint of that. I liked that the storyline bit of George getting sent to Cuba.
Because they think he's a communist.
Yeah.
And they think that it's going to make it easier for them to get unsigned Cuban talent. Yeah. And then, of course, the bumper is George in Cuba, and the dictator is exactly like his boss at the Yankees.
Yep.
And just rambling and nonsensical.
Meanwhile, in New Jersey...
So, Marissa, what talking points do you want to hit on in this week's episode?
Well, Jackie, let's talk about how the film addresses the patriarchy. Ooh, and representation of marginalized people. Ooh, and even philosophical ramifications of good versus evil in horror.
We can point out the triangle boobs, talk about the blood splatter, and the practical effects. And also the male gaze.
My gaze at the males.
Hi-yo! From feminism to fangirling, the Jersey Ghouls cover all the bases of horror from a woman's perspective.
New episodes are uploaded every other Sunday.
Just search Jersey Ghouls to find us on social media and your favorite podcasting app.
Let's talk about the communism stuff a little bit, because
it fell real flat with me.
It fell flat for me, except for there's a couple moments.
Yeah.
So you basically have Elaine and Kramer's storylines kind of intersect at a point. So Kramer and his buddy Mickey have gotten a job as Santa and an elf at the local mall.
Which is the only Christmas in this episode.
And Jerry's opening stand-up.
Oh, yes.
So Kramer and his buddy Mickey are there. Kramer's so excited to be Santa. Like, I love him just like bursting in. He's like, oh. Like he's loving it. But then like he's talking about how it's been 8 hours he says it's been 8 hours of people sitting on my lap and me ho, and then frankly I'm all hoed out. And this is when Elaine's boyfriend just immediately goes into like trying to get Kramer to become a communist. And he goes into the full pitch and Kramer just goes, "Talk to me, baby." Like I love like how easily Kramer can just be like persuaded.
But the guy's making sense. He's like, the guys at that mall are paying their Santa Claus double. I'd be like, what?
Yeah, and this guy's, what do you say? He's like, when you have a big old rash on your face from that beard glue, they're not going to cover your medical expenses or whatever. So we get that piece. Then the next piece with the communism that I kind of laughed at was, we'll jump into Jerry's bit in a little bit, but he says something along the lines of the legend of his fast running. He goes, letting that legend die would be like telling a child there's no Santa Claus. Quick jump cut to Kramer and Mickey walking down the street as Kramer's trying to explain communism through deli meats. It's like, and I don't find that bit funny, but I like that. But then when Kramer is trying to explain communism to the kid on his lap, and the kid jumps off the lap and goes, "Hey, this guy's a commie!" Like, that's the best. That moment alone is the best payoff for the entire communism subplot, is like the 8-year-old kid calling it out. To me, the best part of this entire show is the Jerry story with the Superman and the race. Did you get the "I choose not to run" reference?
No.
I had to look this up because I knew it was familiar to me, but I couldn't figure out why. It's a quote from Woodrow Wilson when asked if he would run for a third presidency. And he said, "I do not choose to run, but they just kind of took it and
I choose not to run.
yeah, I choose not to run. So the story with this is that in high school, there was a giant race at the school, and Jerry was so excited for the race that he didn't wait for the word go. He heard ready, set, and then he took off, and he was so fast that by the time they said go, he was already like 10 yards ahead of everybody.
To which, why is this guy the only one that's like, no, like that was a false start, like run this shit back.
Who knows on that one. But I love how dramatic the telling of the story and the camera movements are. Like, I love that we don't get a flashback. We get this very like single camera Jerry telling the story, and it's like the dramatic pouring of the apple cider into the glass with the final shot afterwards. Just totally absurd and ridiculous. I think the best part in that episode of that storyline, though, is basically what happens is Jerry's dating a girl, Lois. He loves it because it gives him all these Superman references. But her boss, Duncan, is the only person who's ever suspected that Jerry got a false start on the race. And now he's constantly telling his girlfriend how much of a liar Jerry is, and that if he doesn't race him, he will always be a liar. And
to which I'm like, dude, we are like,
they're almost
15
40
years. Yeah, like we're like 15, 20 years older, man. Like let's calm down a little bit. It's not like this is going to be a fair race anyway.
No. So Duncan invites Jerry and his girlfriend out to lunch, and Jerry's like, he's going to try to get me to break. And that's when they come up with the idea, and my favorite scene in the whole episode.
This is hands down the best scene.
That George will pretend that he's not currently friends with Jerry and will back up everything. And the bit of George and Jerry pretending they don't know each other. Oh my God,
George acting like he doesn't know Jerry, and the
his mouth
stupid
just
fucking
dropped
facial
open
expressions. Yeah. Jerry Seinfeld, how you doing?
What are you, a comedian? Oh, you're a comedian? What do you do? A lot of that, like, did you ever notice kind of stuff? Boy, George, you sure got bald.
I fucking loved it. Because George is like trying to play himself up as this like when I made my first million, and you know they always say the first million is the hardest.
Well, he has the one line because we were just reminiscing about the day of the race. He's like, the day of the race, I can never forget that day. That's the day I lost my virginity to Mrs. Stafford, the voluptuous homeroom teacher.
Oh shit!
It is so fucking funny.
Yeah.
Like that is the peak of the episode, and then the car. Basically, they agree to do another race. They're lined up for the race. Duncan has gone as far as bringing back the teacher that did the race the first time, all of their old classmates, and then this I was confused by until I did some research.
Yeah.
So Kramer shows up out of nowhere and is like telling George, "Hey, I've got to get you to the airport," and it feels like really tacked on. Like I'm like, what is happening right now? I forgot about the Cuba trip, basically. Yeah. And then when Kramer goes to start the car, it backfires right on the ready set, which makes Jerry think that that's the gunshot that was promised, and then he wins the race a second time through a cheat. And this is I found this factoid. The shooting script for the episode was 70 pages long as opposed to the usual 40 to 50 pages of a sitcom script. The filmed content far exceeded the show's half-hour time slot. As such, numerous scenes were deleted, including an entire subplot showing how Kramer was able to help George obtain an illegal visa so that he could get into Cuba.
Okay, and also by like removing that portion, it does kind of feel like that ending bit is tacked on.
Yeah,
a little bit. I mean, it does get brought up earlier, just barely, just saying like, "Hey, we're gonna send you down to talk to," because George, you're a communist. We're gonna send you down to talk to them about getting us some ball players. I'm gonna be frank, bro. This is not selling me.
You're not gonna go and binge watch all 9 seasons of Seinfeld after this?
No. And even Teddy was sitting there going like, I could watch this. This is my comfort show because she watched it as a kid, and I'm like, nope. Like it's not
not for you.
No, and it's I don't even think it's the content. It's just the things I associate with the show. Do you have those where you're like it's not that it's bad, like it's objectively good, but it's just not for me. But I really did I love Jason Alexander. I of course went on a rant about The Burning as we were watching this yesterday with Teddy.
Which
I was like,
man, this is twice in 1 week I've brought this up. Do you know who helped fund The Burning?
No.
George Harrison of the Beatles.
Why?
So the story that I heard, and I'm going to give this credit to Hats Off Entertainment on YouTube.
Okay.
But I did double check and I was like, oh, no shit. So I'm sure you've heard the story about how Monty Python and Life of Brian couldn't get their funding, and then George Harrison basically wrote a check to make the movie because, quote unquote, I just wanted to see the movie.
Yeah.
So when he did that, he created a company called Handmade Pictures.
Okay.
And Handmade Pictures basically became where George Harrison would just write the check for any movie he felt like he would want to see. And one of the first movies he did that for was 1981's The Burning.
Wow.
And Time Bandits, which are two dramatically different movies.
Yeah, they are.
And then after he died, there's still occasionally will make films under that production company. The most recent one being 127 Hours.
Wow.
Yeah, they've only made 15 movies. The last one that George Harrison personally signed the check for was Nuns on the Run, starring Eric Idle and the actor who played Hagrid in Harry Potter.
Nuns on the Run. Oh,
yeah, it's about 2 convicts who decide to go straight, but they have pissed off a lot of people. So in order to try to get out, they pretend to be nuns at a monastery, and then find out that they're also going to be teaching a bunch of Catholic schoolgirls. And it's a comedy from the late 80s, early 90s for sure.
They
but
also funded Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Yeah.
And
their lineup
and Planet 51, that weird animated flick.
Yeah, Hands-Made Productions. It's a real weird roster of films for sure.
Yeah. I like The Burning.
Yeah, The Burning's great. Time Bandits is great.
Rules.
But,
yeah, for sure.
All right.
I hope he liked them.
Yeah.
I hope he funded these movies. Do we have a follow-up? If George Harrison was George Harrison reviews the movies he funded.
Wasn't too fond of that one.
Yeah.
Wasn't
a big Nuns on the Run fan.
All right. Well, Dylan, did you ever notice
oh, Jesus,
that we struggle with our sign-outs sometimes?
Sometimes we do struggle with our sign-outs. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Whoa, now we won't stop till the big ball drops on New Year's. Happy holiday, have a great holiday, have a merry happy holiday.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.